over here.
We are talking the psychological horror movie Session 9. And this one was actually recommended to me by someone on Facebook, as I do love a spooky asylum movie. Now this one is directed and co-written by Brad Anderson. This one actually came out in 2001 and stars David Caruso, along with another CSI alum, Paul Guilfoyle. And it basically focuses on a team of 5 kind of blue-collar workers as they are essentially recruited to clear this old insane asylum of kind of asbestos. And this is actually filmed in a real asylum, the Danvers asylum, which has since been demolished, but at the time it was still standing. And the leader of the pack, the boss, Gordon, is under a bit of pressure. Both kind of from a personal perspective and kind of financial. So him and this kind of these are 4 other guys, they're 5 group total, get to work in this kind of in this asylum, but then they discover that this maybe has had a bit of a kind of a somewhat kind of cloudy past, shall we say, where there's a variety of you know, somewhat, you might say, medieval kind of tactics that were used previously, and they discover, one of the members discovers the these kind of session tapes of this character called Mary Hobbs, who was a patient there previously. And there's obviously 9 sessions, and session 9, and there she has multiple personalities, and she's kind of listening to the tapes. And as the movie progresses, things maybe start to happen. They kind of, it's a bit of a kind of hard to describe really, without kind of giving stuff away with this film, but there is ultimately some type of threat, shall we say. Could it be supernatural? Could it be these guys just descending into madness? Could it be something else completely entirely? You'll have to watch the movie to find out. So let's discuss Session 9. I have seen a lot of reviews that absolutely lord over this movie and say it's the best thing since sliced bread. Where do I stand on it? Well, let's talk about the good things first of all. First of all, here is the actual filming this in the kind of a real asylum. I think is a masterstroke. And it obviously, it really does benefit from that, having these kind of legitimately spooky kind of atmosphere that comes out of this kind of like this building. And apparently they didn't have to do a lot of kind of set dressing. It was more or less kind of all as is. I think the cast is pretty good here. You've got mainly kind of TV alum here, but I think everyone does a good job. The acting is all pretty solid, and I feel you kind of get a good sense of characterization throughout the movie. So all the characters are well defined, which is something that really pisses me off when I say films where you have thin characters. But here they all do a good job. You all get the feeling these are kind of very salt of the earth kind of guys, and you get a good sense of who each of them are and what their kind of individual kind of motivations are. There are some great cinematography on display here, I would say, to make some sort of truly creepy imagery here. Interestingly, the majority of this film is actually shot during the day, so you don't kind of benefit from having these kind of like, these spooky scenes sort of during the night, but it kind of makes sense because obviously these guys are working during the day, so it kind of makes sense that they wouldn't be there overnight ultimately, or at least not all, throughout the whole night. So yeah, it kind of adds to that kind of level of realism. And this movie is certainly something where you have a movie where you have to kind of pay attention, so to speak, and listen to what people are saying and stuff like that. And it's like a psychological horror. So what doesn't work for me, and this may be a nitpick, but I'll get it out of the way. At the beginning of the movie, we're told that these guys initially need at least 3 weeks to do this, but they kind of say that we'll do it in a week, and which ultimately means they are going to have to put the pedal to the metal to kind of get this work done. But you very rarely see them do any work. They always seem to be on a break or doing something else, and that kind of just bothered me a little bit. But that's only a little minor nitpicky thing here. The thing with this film, I think, this is going to be a matter of taste, because this movie is a slow burn, and there's very little actual horror here. It's more kind of relying on atmosphere and kind of like just the kind of what is unseen ultimately. This movie does leave it somewhat up to interpretation. But what bugs me a little bit about this film is a visual medium, and for most cases I would say show don't tell, and therefore this movie is guilty of a little bit of tell not show, and I think, to be honest with you, it's a little bit hard to understand about what's going on. I mean, the changes in status quo are very subtle, and I don't feel, I mean, I'm reading some kind of people's comments about this film, and some people just simply don't understand it. And I think that's a fair criticism, because I don't think this movie, I mean, yeah, okay, you might say, oh, movie shouldn't hold your hand, but at the same time, I do feel it should have maybe a bit of a stronger narrative, which I feel this movie suffers from a little bit. Now, you may be on two sides of the fence on that one, and obviously some people who obviously get what's going on and completely maybe will say, oh, well, I like the fact that it was kind of somewhat ambiguous. But for me personally, I have to say I thought this was kind of somewhat of a difficult movie to kind of follow, and it's a real slow burn. Also, I didn't think it was a particularly spooky film, if I'm completely honest. I think the actual, the setting looks great, but I never once had a kind of like a moment where I was kind of a little bit chilled. Again, maybe I'm desensitized to it, but to me, yeah, it wasn't really a scary film in any sense of the word. It's not a film where you're having ghosts and things jumping out at you and jump scares. It's not that film at all. But even then, I still feel you can kind of create a kind of a spooky feeling of unease, and I never really got that from this film. So ultimately, I feel there is craft behind this movie, but for me personally, I actually found it a little bit uninteresting. I understood what was going on and the kind of the descent into madness and all of that, and obviously kind of what it's showing, but it just wasn't very interesting to me. I know some people really like this movie, but for me, I've got to say, for most people, I would say it's probably not going to be one for you unless you just want a very slow burn psychological thriller. I really wouldn't say this is even a horror film. I mean, it's classed as a horror film, but to me there was no real horror element in this movie at all. Maybe just a little tad at the end, but not a lot. So I'm going to give this movie a 6 out of 10. I mean, it is a well-crafted film and is intelligent, but ultimately I found it somewhat unsatisfying. But obviously that is just my opinion. Please don't shoot me for it. So there you go, 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.